Afghanistan has long been called the graveyard of empires, and time and again it has proved to be so. Empire after empire, nation after nation have failed to hold and capture what is today known as the modern territory of Afghanistan. In the 19th and 20th century, over an 80-year period, the British fought 3 wars in Afghanistan, partially controlling the country in between. However, finally, an exhausted Britain gave up in 1919. The Soviets invaded in 1979 to try and quell a brewing civil war and prop up its allies in the Afghan government, and they limped out in 1989, which eventually led to their disintegration. The first American military battle of the 21st century was fought in Afghanistan shortly after the events of September 11, 2001. After nearly 20 years of fighting, even the world's greatest military is retreating. So what chances does China have? China has a long history of making disastrous choices, sometimes even repeating them, and they have certainly increased under Xi Jinping. Now he has decided to enter the graveyard, and that too with Pakistan, which has fooled the previous entrant, the US, for almost 2 decades. While the previous world powers were economically and militarily in a better position, China has become domestically vulnerable and is facing a plethora of problems at home and abroad. Making such a foolish decision, that too in such a vulnerable juncture of its existence, China is acting as an example to the world as to how money cannot buy a logical foreign policy. Hi and welcome to TFI Global, the foreign affairs and geopolitical analysis arm of the TFI Media Group. I'm your host Atul Mishra, and in this video I will tell you how China is digging its own grave by entering Afghanistan, the graveyard of empires. Let's begin. The last time a communist regime entered Afghanistan and tried to control it militarily turned out to be its endgame scenario. And China, being a master at repeating the mistakes of the past, seems inclined to do the same. The Chinese Foreign Ministry announced on Monday that China and Pakistan have decided to undertake joint efforts in Afghanistan to prevent the war-torn country from becoming a hotbed for terrorism and drive out terrorist elements. The decision was reached during a meeting between Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi and his Pakistani colleague Shah Mahmood Qureshi on Saturday in Chengdu, China's southwestern city. China thinks that making a deal with the devil and taking the help of a failed state like Pakistan, it can control the region. But Pakistan, which has already ripped off the USA with its dual speak, will add to China's problems rather than solving them. But the truth of the matter is that by making an entry into Afghanistan with its PLA troops, China is entering a whirlpool where these troops are destined to drown. For China, the problem is that the flare-up in Afghanistan can move beyond its borders and enter the Xinjiang region of China, where CCP is committing industrial-scale brutalities on the ethnic Uyghurs. China also wants to secure its CPEC project and is even trying to extend it into Afghanistan. All these objectives are making the communist autocracy enter the country, what is very rightly referred to as the graveyard of great powers. And thus these objectives will only pull Beijing deeper into the abyss. It is no secret that China has amicable relations with both the civilian government of Afghanistan, based out of Kabul, as well as the terror organization Taliban. As a prerequisite, what China needs for the Taliban to do is to not provide a safe haven for the East Turkestan Islamic Movement, or the ETIM, deemed a terror organization of Uyghurs by China. Now a 9-member delegation led by Taliban leader Mullah Baradar Akhund met Chinese Foreign Minister and State Councillor Wang Yi on Tuesday. The Taliban leader assured Beijing that they will not allow Afghanistan to be used against the security of any country. Taliban has the ability to use the ETIM and other terror groups in Afghanistan as a bargaining chip to ensure that China does not pretend to be the alpha male in their bilateral dynamic, and with the latest developments, it has already started to utilize that position. As the Taliban agrees to tame the ETIM, the terror organization and Taliban would have found a mutual benefit by cooperating with each other. While China will help the Taliban build and reconstruct the war-torn country that Afghanistan has become, the Taliban will make sure that no extremist or militant groups threaten China's brutal hold over the Xinjiang province. Pakistan, meanwhile, will be happy since it would have formed an alliance of 3 countries to gain some bucks, as it is a reeling economy and in the future it can hope to take on India. However, in all these deliberations, one must not forget that Afghanistan is a heterogeneous mix of multiple warlords and tribal groups, which are at odds with the Taliban too. So with the entry of the PLA troops and the Chinese yuan in Afghanistan, Beijing will be swept in the whirlpool of complex domestic situations and its resources will be gulped. The Taliban are attempting to allay global fears that Pakistan-based terror groups and pan-Islamic groups such as Al-Qaeda will not use civilian strife in Afghanistan to establish terror training camps for targeting countries opposed to radical Islam by assuring Beijing that Afghan territory will not be used against any third country. However, between 1996 and 2001, the Taliban provided safe haven to the majority of pan-Islamic terrorist groups such as Al-Qaeda, Harkatul Ansar, and Huji Bangladesh, maintained training camps for Pakistan-based groups such as Lashkar-e-Taiba, and virtually sponsored global jihad around the world. But the actions that the Taliban is taking will even make a toddler realize that they cannot be trusted. The fact that they are getting closer to China and inviting them to Afghanistan means that they are not in control and are not even sure that they can maintain order. By getting persuaded by the Taliban and Pakistan to enter Afghanistan, China has dug its own grave. Taliban and Pakistan will leech off of Beijing to the maximum extent and may even add it to the list of great powers for whom the war-torn country has so far served as a graveyard. While it is a bad omen for China, the world should celebrate as the paper dragon is digging its own grave.